These are the exercises for Futato chapter 37. First section is parsing. Number 1 here we have first consonant yod. Is that a prefix? Well, again, it certainly could be. What do we have after that? Do we have a discernible lemma? Yes, we do. Amen. Right here, we know that from our vocabulary. So we have an imperfect form, that much we know. And now we want to go to vowel patterns. Now this chapter dealt with weak verbs with the nif vowel. Okay, so we should have that in our heads to begin with, but you should know the patterns. Our pattern here is under the prefix we have an I-class vowel, and then we have a comets here to follow. Now when you look at the tsera under the prefix, I have said in other videos that typically when you get an imperfect prefix with tsera, you can count on that being the sign of a first yod verb lemma in the cow. But we know that doesn't work here because here's our lemma. Okay, we've got our lemma. So this cannot be a cow of a first yod lemma. So then you'd have to ask yourself the question, well, why do I have a tsera here? And then hopefully you're observant, you observe a guttural as your first lemma consonant. And that should tell you that this lengthens, so it must have originally been a hirek, okay, a short I. And hopefully that will trigger, this is going to be a nif vowel, because normally we'd have hirek, dagesh, comets. When hirek is followed by comets, there's usually this dagesh here. But since this is a guttural, I can't have a dagesh. Gutturals do not take the dagesh, and so it lengthens. Again, this is the kind of process of elimination thinking about your patterns that needs to be in your head. So this is a nif vowel imperfect. Of course, there's no further ending, so it's third masculine singular. Number 2, we have nidach t. Now right away we can tell from the t that this is a perfect conjugation. It's going to be first common singular. We have to ask ourselves whether then, if the 3 consonants here are a known lemma, and they are, nadach, we know that from our vocabulary. And so we're really going to have to, look at this and look at the vowel patterns and see what we have here. Now, nadach is a first noon verb. So in many cases, the noon, of course, assimilates into the second consonant. We do have a dagesh here, so we could have, this could be a PL. Okay, it looks like a PL candidate, but in this case, of course, for this set of exercises, we have to be thinking in terms of the nif vowel. What's happened here is nadach, the first noon has assimilated into the dalet, and this ni is for the nif vowel. So we have a nif vowel perfect first common singular. That's actually a difficult form, again, because of the assimilation. It's going to make it resemble a PL form. Number 3, yivaladu. Okay, yod first. Is that a prefix consonant? Well, it could be. That's one of our candidates. Do we have a discernible lemma? We do. We have vav, lamed, dalet, and we have to remember, again, that sometimes with first yod lemmas, the lemma here is going to be yalad. That first yod will change to a vav in certain forms and in certain stems. And so we have a first yod lemma here, and it's of the type where the first yod in the lemma, the first consonant, could appear as a vav. Now, what tells us, really more definitively what we have here, if we have an imperfect form, we know the yod is imperfect, the ending tells us it's imperfect, third masculine singular, but the vowel pattern is a giveaway. Hirek, dagesh, comets. That's a sure sign of a nif vowel imperfect, third masculine plural. Number 4, yibaneh. Here again, is the yod a prefix? Well, it certainly could be. Do we have a discernible lemma? Bana, yes we do. Oh, look at our pattern. Hirek, dagesh, comets. Nif vowel imperfect, third masculine singular. Number 5, nivna. We have noon. Is that a prefix? Well, it could be. Okay, that's one of our candidates. Bana, that's a discernible lemma. So we have to think about this noon prefix now. Now, is this a cal imperfect first common plural? Actually, again, we would have to sort of rely on our knowledge of the other paradigms to know that that is not the case here because of this comets hey. Rather, we've got a n and then a comets as our theme vowel, and that's going to be nifal perfect, third masculine singular. So it's not a cal, Ken, it's a nifal. And you say, well, look at that comets. I thought we'd only get that comets with a participle in the nifal, because we have a discernible lemma here. Well, again, this is a tricky one because it's a third hey lemma. Nivna, you have to remember with third hey lemmas, that comets hey is actually the perfect, what you would expect with a participle. But the participle form is going to have a different vowel. This is the only time when this pattern changes. It's going to be a segol here with the have to show the participle. So that one's a little tricky. Number 6, ye ana. Again, this is just sort of like number 1 actually, but with a third hey lemma. We have a yod. It is a prefix. We know it's a prefix because ana is a discernible lemma. We have tsera. The tsera cannot be a sign of a first yod lemma because here is our lemma, and it's not a first yod lemma. And so that means this was originally a hierarch. We've got a comets. Usually the only time you're going to have this combination is nifal, hierarch, dagesh, comets. Oh, well, we can't have a dagesh here in a guttural, so it lengthens to tsera. So again, the process of elimination is the same. We have a nifal perfect third masculine singular from ana. Number 7, no danu. Okay, here we have our first consonant is noon. Is that a prefix? Well, again, it's one of our candidates. Do we have a discernible lemma thereafter? Yes, we do. We've got vav, dalet, rayan. Remember, some first yod lemmas, that first consonant will change to a vav. So we know our lemma is yada. That means noon is a prefix. And you have this no combination. Now, prior to this time, the only place you've seen this is with hifil. Hifil imperfect. Again, that would be the candidate because the noon would be an imperfect, prefix. But it doesn't make any sense here because with a first common plural imperfect, you wouldn't have nu as an ending. This is a perfect ending, so this is a perfect form with no out front. The only thing it can be is a nifal perfect, first common plural, again from yada. So again, no is going to be the sign either that you've got a hifil imperfect first common plural of a first yod verb situation, or a nifal, okay, nifal of first yod, and the ending tells us which one it is. It's a nifal perfect, not a hifil imperfect. Number 8, we've got hivataru. So we've got hey. Is that a prefix? Well, it could be. We've seen hey prefixes before, of course, with hifil. Okay, so we consider it a prefix, a candidate anyway. Do we have a discernible lemma? Vav, tav, resh. Well, if you, again, can change this vav in your mind to a yod, yater, okay, that's a discernible lemma. It's one of those kind that first yod will become a vav. So I know what my lemma is, therefore the hey has to be a prefix. What's the pattern? Hierarch, dagesh, comets. It's a nifal. Okay, but what's the conjugation? Well, it's not imperfect, okay, because hey is not an imperfect prefix consonant. It's not a perfect, okay, because the perfect doesn't have a prefix, this kind of prefix in the nifal. We know it's nifal. We know because of the vowel pattern here. So it's not going to be a hifil. It's not going to be, some of these other situations where we've had this. Again, it's not an imperfect. Again, because we can tell from the patterning here, the ending. So, and of course the prefix hey, that's not going to show up in the imperfect. So what do we have? Well, we don't have really much to choose from. This is going to be an imperative. This is a nifal because of the vowel pattern, imperative. And the hey, of course, is consistent with that. Again, this is part of the chapter, the last two chapters, again, of the nifal pattern. So a nifal imperative, second masculine plural. Number 9, ne esaf tem. Well, tem is a dead giveaway for a perfect form, second masculine plural. Then we have the noon here. Is that a prefix? Well, could be. Asaf is a discernible lemma. So where do we get a noon prefix with an I-class vowel on a perfect form? Well, it's nifal perfect, second masculine plural. Number 10, hey ra'ot. Again, hey, is that a lemma? Or excuse me, is that a prefix consonant? Well, it could be. It's one of our candidates. What would the rest of the consonants tell us? Well, the ot ending, again, is either going to be a feminine plural participle, because we're dealing with verbals here, or an infinitive construct. And ot, if you remember, is the common ending for a third hey lemma when we get into the infinitive construct, especially, and of course for the feminine plural participle. So we've got really two choices. If we presume, and there's good basis for doing so, that ra'ah is our lemma, then we have to deal with this hey. Well, we've got the hey prefix. We know it's not an imperfect form both by the prefix and the ending. We know, again, that we're not going to have a participle here. We don't have hey prefixes on participles. It's either going to be no prefix at all, like in the cal, or a mem prefix. We could have a definite article here, but then we wouldn't have an I-class vowel. Okay, so the definite article on a participle in the cal is a possibility, but the I-class vowel messes that up. So we can rule participle out, which means we have an infinitive construct, and that would make sense in the nifal stem, because nifal with the infinitive construct has a hey prefix in hirik, dagesh, comets. We have tsera here because resh is a guttural. Okay, so we have picked our way through to the correct parsing. Nifal infinitive construct from ra'ah. Number 11, nitzal. Noon, is that a prefix? Well, it might be. That's a candidate. We've got two consonants left, tzadi and lamed. Okay, but again, we've got this pattern, hirik, dagesh, comets, and boy, how do I know about the lemma? I mean, what should I do with this? Do I have an imperfect form here, or is this dagesh right here? Because an original first noon in my lemma has assimilated. In other words, the dagesh is going to represent, two possibilities here. Either you have an imperfect form, hirik, dagesh, comets, and that's why the dagesh is there, or you have the dagesh here because of an original first noon, and the noon is assimilated, and then that would make this a participle. And believe it or not, that's the correct choice in this case. You would have, the noon would not assimilate in the imperfect. And that's something to remember. We have a nifal participle, masculine singular. Number 12, ne and ne ta. And we have ta at the ending, dead giveaway for a perfect conjugation, second masculine singular. And we know that before suffix endings in the perfect, we have here a noon, which could be a prefix, and then rayan, noon, yod. We know that before suffix endings in the perfect, a third hey lemma the last consonant of that lemma will change to a yod. And that's what we have here. Ana is our lemma. So we have a perfect form, second masculine singular of ana, but we have a noon prefix, noon I-class in perfect. That's going to be a nifal perfect, second masculine singular. Number 13, hey haragi. What do we have here? Hey, is that a prefix? Certainly could be. Harag, is that a lemma we know? Yes, it is, because we know our vocabulary. So we've got a hey prefix. The tsera, again, it can't be a sign of a first yod lemma, because here is our lemma. We have three discernible consonants here. So we know, again, that there's a reason. We have this here, again, followed by comets. Usually, the only time you're going to get that is with nifal, and you'd have a short I. But, oh, okay, I know why I don't have a short I here now. It's lengthened to its sera because the first consonant is a guttural. It's hey. So we know we have a nifal now. The only question is, again, what's the conjugation? It's not a perfect because nifal perfects will start with ni. It's not a participle for the same reason. It's not an imperfect because hey is not an imperfect prefix. We have an imperative here, nifal imperative, and the ending tells us it's second feminine singular. Number 14, tivadu, tav, prefix. Is that a prefix imperfect? Is it an imperfect prefix? Well, it could be. That's one of our candidates for an imperfect prefix. Do we have a discernible lemma? Yes, we do. It's yada, first yod consonant, has changed to the vav. We've got our familiar pattern, hirik, dagesh, comets. This is a nifal imperfect, and the prefix and the ending tells us it's second masculine plural. Number 15, niba'u. So we've got an interesting situation here. Noon. Is that a prefix? Well, it could be. What do we have here for the rest of it? We've got a long U ending. Now that's either going to be the imperfect third masculine plural, but we need a yod out here for that, so that isn't it. It could be like above here, an imperfect second masculine plural, but then we need a tav here, so it's not either of those. And that tells us that, those are the only two places where we're going to have the long U ending in the imperfect. So this is not a first common plural imperfect, even though we have ni here, and that's a possibility in the cal, but that's rendered impossible by virtue of this ending. So we don't have an imperfect. That means we've got something else. Don't have a participle because of the noon out here. Well, what could it be? Well, we look at the dagesh, and again we know that there's either two reasons for the dagesh. One would be hirik dagesh comets. We don't have that right here, or else we'd have a comets here. The other is a noon assimilation, and that would mean our lemma would be nava. So that would mean this is a prefix. Okay, it is a prefix, which would mean it's a nifal perfect, and the ending would tell us it's third common plural. Again, just deducing our way to the parsing. B and C sections, again, you can check through the answer key on your own. They're self-explanatory. So let's move right to section D with translation. Again, we have vai up right away. Vav, patak, dagesh. We have a vav consecutive, a vav relative here. So we got to store that away so we know how to translate it correctly. But what's our form? Yod, prefix, we have a discernible lemma, natsal. So we know the yod is a prefix. We know since it's a vav consecutive and we've got a prefix, this is going to be an imperfect form. Again, we're going to parse it as vav consecutive, but again, you should be following that line of thinking by now. We've got hirik, dagesh, comets. So we have a vav consecutive nifal right here, and prefix and the ending tells us it's third masculine plural. So, and natsal, again, we could translate, again, they with the verb meaning, but we want to keep reading to get our subject. We have ha'anashim, men, and then ha'kedoshim. So we've got a noun plural and an adjective plural, both preceded by the article. We have an attributive relationship here. So the holy men, okay, the holy men. And then we have from ha'anashim hareshaim, the wicked men. And then we have hanil kamim. Now this, again, is a bit interesting. We've got hey, again, hey with patak and then dagesh. Again, that's looking like definite article territory, and it is. So that's either going to be on a noun or a participle, okay, our definite article. So we've got the im ending here. It could be either a noun or a participle. We've got lacham, and lacham. So we know that's a verb lemma, so what we have here is a nifal participle. We have ni on a verb lemma. That's going to be, with the im ending, it's going to be a nifal participle. preposition, suffix. Here we have vayeshevu, so we have vay with a vav patak dagesh. Okay, that's going to be another vav consecutive to pick up with this last one. We have a tsera under the yod. Again, that could be a sign of a first yod lemma. Again, yashav, that's a lemma we know. Be'eretz tova, in a good land, that should be self-explanatory. Here we have another vav patak dagesh, hirik dagesh komets. Again, this is a nifal, vav consecutive, vav relative, and the rest again is going to just be nouns. So let's look at our translation here. We have the holy men then were delivered, because this is a nifal, and it's were delivered. Okay, sort of completed action because it's vav consecutive. The holy men were delivered from the wicked men, and then here we have our participle, who were fighting. You say, well, that doesn't sound like passive. Well, it does have a passive nuance, lakam, again, to fight. You wouldn't say to be fought. You would say, you know, it's just a little, it's kind of a quirky lemma. You'd have to go with were fighting. I know it sounds both active and a little bit passive as well, but lakam is a common verb that's going to be found in the nifal. Again, so you need to be aware of that. And Futato, you know, tells you that in the chapter. So they delivered from the wicked men who were fighting alehem, against them. And or then they settled. Remember, this was from Yeshav. They settled. Here we go again. You know, we've got you know, first yod situation. Were settled. This again. This is going to be a kal. There's nothing to suggest we have a nifal here. So this is a kal vav consecutive. They were settled in a good land, and something were built. Batim, houses were built. This is a nifal, and it's again a vav consecutive. So we're doing our passive. Were built, again, completed action. Were built for them. Beharim, in the mountains, and then conjunction, preposition, and gay is our lemma. Valley, gayot, plural, gayot, and in valleys, in the mountains and in the valleys. And it's the valleys because we have a definite article right here under the bet. So number 2, vayehi ka'asher, and it came to pass. Again, I always translate these literally just so that we don't forget about what's going on out here. And it was, or it came to pass, ka'asher, when hinave. And then we have ha-nevi'im. Well, we know this, the prophets, okay? Okay, well, what's going on here? You know, and it came to pass when, hoping you notice a pattern here, or you remember a pattern. Oftentimes, again, think of the pattern here. We have a preposition. You know, it's an adverbial preposition here, when. Then we have a subject. So what would be in between? Usually it's preposition, infinitive construct, suffix. Here we have preposition, infinitive construct. You know, think about it. We've got a hey prefix. Okay, could that be, you know, well, I just said it was a prefix. It is a prefix, and you can tell because we have a discernible lemma here, nave. And so you say, well, where do I get the hey prefix? And then you look at the vowel pattern, hirik dagesh komets. So hey with hirik dagesh komets, it's either an imperative, okay, or an infinitive construct. It wouldn't be an imperative here because we have a plural subject. You would need a plural. You'd need the long u ending out here for this to be a plural imperative. So the only thing left is infinitive construct. So, and it came to pass when the prophets prophesied, okay, or were prophesying. Again, it's nifal. So we're trying to express that in something that approximates a passive feel to it. When the prophets were prophesying, again, I know that sounds active as well, but you wouldn't say we're being prophesied. Again, this is just a verb lemma that in the nifal, again, is going to get expressed in something that sounds active and a little bit passive. Again, you just have to know the vocabulary. You have to think about the vocabulary, and in English how you would express it. So, and it came to pass when the prophets, okay, were prophesying or prophesied, or again, context we would need here too. To hazakanim, Zechanim, to the elders. Then what? Vayehi, this is a Vav consecutive form of Haya. We don't have a Dagesh here because of the Shva. Again, go back, if you don't remember that, go back to the Vav relative chapter and read what Futato says there. But Vayehi is always Vav consecutive. That's just the easy thing to remember. And so we have another verb form, and we've got patak, Vav patak Dagesh. This is another Vav consecutive, Vav relative form. And we can tell the lemma is shuv right here, to turn or return. So we've got a yod prefix, the u long vowel. So we've got a third masculine plural. So they prophesying to the elders, then hazakanim, the elders what? The elders turned or returned. Again, we don't have all the context here. And all the people, the elders and all the people turned. Here we go. We've got a compound subject. Turned or returned. Again, or you in the context, if there's sin going on here, you would even want to say repented. Velo niglu, and not niglu. This is from Gala. Okay. From their land. Vayet. Here we have Vav patak Dagesh. We have another Vav consecutive form. We've got Yid beku. Again, they clung. Again, there's nothing to suggest here a nifal. Again, this is just a normal cow. Livrit avotam, to the covenant of their fathers. Well, let's put it all up here. When the prophets prophesied to the elders, okay, or were prophesying, and either way works, to the elders, and, or comma, then, again, if you want to represent the Vav here in your translation, Futato does not, you could put then the elders and all the people repented. Okay, so they turned, again, metaphorically they repented, and were not Gala, we're not exiled. Now we've got Gala, we've got Niglu down here. Noon, is that a prefix? Well, it could be. What's our Gala is our lemma. Okay, so we've got noon and then a long U ending. We had one of these in the parsing before. It's not an imperfect, because if it was an imperfect, the noon here would not take that ending. This is a perfect form. Okay, it's a perfect form, and it's a nifal perfect because of the ni. So that's why we're translating it passively. They were not exiled from their land, and or then they clung to the covenant of their fathers. Number 3, Ye'aminu, Divrei Adonai, divine name. So the words of the Lord, and we've got here a verb form. We've got yod. Is that a prefix? Well, it certainly could be. Do we have a discernible lemma? Aman, yes we do. We've got a tzera. It's not a first yod kal, because we've got our lemma here, which is not a first yod lemma. We've got an I class followed by comets, and of course we have a guttural here, so it would have been Hirik Dagesh comets had it not been for this guttural. So we've got a nifal, again imperfect form, third masculine plural. The words of the Lord were, again, reliable, again however you choose to translate aman, and mishpatav, the words of the Lord and his judgments, ve'torotav, and his laws. Okay, again, we're reliable, we're trustworthy, something like that. Lema'an, in order that, so that kind of thing. And here we have ta'aminu. So we've got tav, is that a prefix? Well, it could be aman. Yes, there's a definite discernible lemma. So we've got an imperfect form. Again, we've got aminu. So that we've got an A class patach here, followed by I class. Again, we want to remember that in our parsing. Bam, preposition with suffix. Velo, that's easy enough, conjunction negator. Then we've got tira'u, is this a prefix? Certainly could be. Yara, discernible lemma. Okay. Ki lo te azevu. Same thing as with our first verb form up here. Prefix, discernible lemma, but the first consonant is a guttural. Okay, and we've got that Sarah comets going on. So this is a nifal form, Badonai le'olam. So let's put our translation up here. The words of the Lord and his judgments and his laws, Futata has, are firm. Okay, well, I would say are reliable. Something like that. So that you, and it's going to be masculine plural, second masculine plural, the tav prefix with the long u vowel, so that you plural may trust bam in them, velo tira'u, and just carrying the conjunction over here, and so that you plural, again tav long u, you may not be afraid, for lo, there's a negator, for, and this is what was a nifal, remember we just parsed it. For you plural, again tav long u vowel, you plural will not be forsaken or abandoned by the Lord forever. Okay, so the better English would be you will never be abandoned or forsaken by the Lord. Hebrew Bible excerpts, I will let you check this on your own for the most part. However, again, a few things. We've got Vayehi, we should know what that is. We've got preposition, infinitive construct from Allah, again to offer up, and then a noun. Here's the subject. And it came to pass when hamincha, it's the offering, a kind of offering, was offered up. Okay, then we've got vayigash, vav, patak, dagesh. We also have a dagesh here. We don't have here dagesh comets, so this is not a nifal. We have a dagesh here, though. Why? Because we have a noon assimilation. Nagash is our lemma. Okay. Eliyahu, Elijah, the prophet. Let's go down here. Vayomer Adonai Elohei Avraham Yitzchak veYisrael. That should be easy to translate. Hayom. Okay, easy to translate. Then we've got Yivada. Yod prefix. Yada is the lemma. Hirik dagesh kamet. You've got a nifal form here. Ki ata Elohim beYisrael va'ani avdecha uvid barka asiti et kol hadevarim ha'eleh. Again, I want you to try to work through that translation. This is not a difficult verse. You should be able to translate this pretty easily by this point, again, if you know the vocabulary. So that is the end of the exercises for Futato chapter 37.